상장으로 공장 4단의 사인분께 전달해 주시면 되겠습니다. 상금으로 미화 5만 불이 전달되겠습니다. 자, 되셨습니까? 수고하셨습니다. 자, 위원장님 그리고 이사장님께서는 이제 내려가셔도 괜찮겠습니다.
I am greatly honored to be chosen as the 2011 recipient of the prestigious Gwangju Prize for Human Rights. It is indeed an honor for me, not just for me, but also countless other human rights workers struggling to establish peace, justice, and equity all over India, including Chhattisgarh, where I live and work. I would like to thank the people of South Korea, and in particular the citizens of Gwangju, whose historic struggles have made freedom, democracy, and justice core values of their society. The martyrs of Gwangju will remain an inspiration to people all over Asia as we struggle to make the world a better place. First, I shall try to briefly clear up some possible misconceptions about me. I did not violate any laws and never was disloyal to the people of my country. This is because in the court I was accused and convicted in the lower court of treason, and it is only in the Supreme Court that I was able to get bail, which is why I am standing here before you today. And the Supreme Court also gave the opinion that there was no evidence of sedition in the records of my case. So I need to make this clarification. I condemn unequivocally all violence by any and all individuals and agencies. I believe that violence is an invalid and unsustainable approach to achieving goals, whether these are the goals of the state or the goals of individuals operating outside the law. Because the state is sworn to uphold the Constitution of India, I believe we are entitled to hold agents of the state to a higher standard than we hold outlaws. As members and office bearers of the People's Union for Civil Liberties, it is the responsibility of my colleagues and myself to help hold the state accountable to the promises of the Indian Constitution. But the state does not only consist of the government or its agencies. As a society, we are all part of the state, and there would be no state without us. We often tend to think of violence only in terms of the use of weapons and explosives against others. However, there is another form of violence in society which is structural in nature and which I believe is even more pervasive and pernicious than guns and bombs, because it is all around us and we have stopped noticing it. It is this other form of violence that concerns me as a pediatrician and public health physician. Chhattisgarh, where I work, is the most mineral-rich state in the country, and iron ore, dolomite, coal, bauxite, diamonds are found in abundance. The province also produces 20% of the India's steel and cement, and is also a major center of thermal power production. Much of the mineral resource lies below lands occupied by the indigenous people of India, called the Adivasis. Yet throughout India, as well as in Chhattisgarh, the Adivasis are a much neglected group, long deprived of such basics as nutritional security, health care, and education, who are now also suffering displacement from their natural habitat and their traditional livelihood resources as politically favored commercial interests seek to exploit the state's vast mineral wealth in their hands. I believe that Korea, with its experience of being under colonial rule, would be very able to understand the problems that our people in India are facing. My health work in Chhattisgarh for the last 30 years has demonstrated to me again and again that there is a clear relationship to people's nutrition, social, economic and well-being and the state of their health. Health can never exist in isolation and without a broader concept of entitlements. My participation in human rights work started with my joining the People's Union for Civil Liberties, a long-established and respected Indian human rights organization established by the late Jayaprakash Narayan during the last dark days of the emergency, when the liberty of speech and expression of ordinary citizens stood suspended. This was a period when the government of Chhattisgarh was engaged in a major project of land acquisition and mega development that deprived the Adivasis of their access to common property resources in land, water and forest, as well as existing livelihood options. State action in the forested parts of the province, ostensibly against the Maoists, severely compromised normal life with repressive laws, police brutality, and the sponsorship of a vicious civilian militia or vigilante group called the Salwa Julu. On behalf of the PUCL, my colleagues and I organized objective inquiries into the atrocities of this militia. We also led inquiries into so-called encounter killings, by which security agencies sometimes secretly liquidate suspected militants. The PUCL has also strongly criticized over the years the forced displacement of the Adivasis without proper rehabilitation and without sharing with them the fruits of economic development, which is mainly based on the exploitation of mineral wealth located in their natural habitat. Almost certainly, because of my growing involvement in human rights work and exposure of state atrocities on indigenous peoples, on 14th May 2007, I was put in jail for allegedly supporting the outlawed Maoists. What I have said so far about Chhattisgarh applies today to all of India. Ladies and gentlemen, on this solemn occasion, I would like to make an appeal to all of you. In the times we live, while oppression is most acutely manifested in remote and local places like Bastar district of Chhattisgarh, the truth is that the forces behind such oppression are often global in nature. It is well recognized that now that the tsunami-like flow of capital around the world is a source of tremendous tragedy for many communities around the world which do not fit into the ideologically straight-jacketed confines of the market economy. Countries like South Korea that have suffered the ravages of colonialism in the past and risen from the ashes of the Second World War to become industrially and economically leading nations of the world have a special responsibility today. It is the responsibility of ensuring that they do not do the kind of violence and exploitation to the people of the Third World that they themselves suffered at the hands of others. I want to bring up the specific case of the South Korean steel giant POSCO, which has embarked on a $12 billion project in the Indian state of Odisha to mine iron ore, build a port, and a mega steel plant. The royalty that POSCO will pay for the iron ore is around 24 rupees, that is 50 US cents per ton, whereas the selling price in the international market is around 5,000 rupees, that is 110 US dollars today. Besides all this, POSCO and its investors from around the world are to be illegally given 5,000 acres of land that was originally forest land and cannot be used for any other purpose under Indian law without the consent of the forest-dwelling people. Even as we speak here today, large contingents of the Odisha police are moving into the villages settled on the targeted land for the POSCO project to uproot local communities using brute force. I would like to appeal to the South Korean people and to the South Korean civil society in particular, and the people of Gwangju in particular, to strongly oppose the POSCO project in solidarity with the brave farmers and fishermen of Jagatsinghpur in Odisha. POSCO should withdraw its investment in this project immediately and an inquiry be launched in both South Korea and India into the circumstances under which such a project was considered and cleared. The spirit of the Gwangju Prize for Human Rights calls upon all of us to continue to oppose violations of human rights in every form, wherever it occurs and whatsoever the costs of such opposition. We remain committed to peace, but realize that there cannot be any peace without equity and social justice. I am confident that my appeal to you will be heard and responded to, and the solidarity of the South Korean people will forever remain with the oppressed people of India and other parts of Asia and the world. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I can't come to South Korea and not raise the issue of POSCO. I mean, it would not be appropriate. So I think that irrespective of whatever happens, these are issues that need to be raised. And mind you, there is a strong voice in South Korea against the POSCO project in India. There are people, activists who are working here on issues relating to POSCO. And so since the people of, and the other thing is that the other part of it is, we are sitting here in Gwangju, which represents, I mean, if we can think of a single representative in Asia of this kind of resistance to militarized oppression, then the Gwangju history of the 18th May uprising is something that we have to take into account. So we can't sit in Gwangju visiting South Korea and not talk about POSCO.
At one level, you are having to negotiate at the jail gate for a 1-hour meeting and being said, no, this is not the rule. So you're coping with the state brutality at that level, and then you're coping with the adulation at this level. But slowly I've begun to realize that whatever Vinayak stands for, I mean, it means something. It means something positively for some people and negatively for some people. So that is the only way to make sense of it.